We're here with Technical Sergeant Bobby Wolf from the U.S. Air Force Academy Band here in Colorado Springs with me. Hey, Bobby.
Hey, how's it
How you
going?
doing? How you doing? So you're a guitarist, and any other instruments besides guitar?
I play clarinet as well. Yeah, I mean, I can
Clarinet. Okay.
dabble in
Yeah.
a handful of things, but mainly
Yeah.
proficient at those two.
So all kinds of guitar work at the Air Force Academy Band here in Colorado Springs. So tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, music, anything else you want to share about, how you got into all this.
So I started playing music in probably like the fifth grade or so. I started playing clarinet.
Yeah.
Played clarinet all the way through high school. Then that's about when I started playing guitar. Maybe like last year of junior high, so like maybe eighth grade, I started guitar.
Yeah.
Then I was playing both of them together. Pretty much just self. Well, I wasn't self-taught on the guitar. I started self-taught, and then I started taking private lessons, and that really kick-started me into learning a lot about music. Just because my instructor taught me a lot of theory and stuff as a high schooler,
Oh.
so that really just opened up my eyes and my ears to like how music works and whatnot. And I was still playing clarinet all this time.
Mm-hmm.
Graduated high school, went to college, uh, became a music ed major with an emphasis on clarinet.
Mm-hmm.
I took
Oh, really?
yeah, I took
Okay.
classical guitar lessons on the side as like a not an elective, but like just another class. They didn't really have. I couldn't really be a classical guitar music ed major, is what it seemed like. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but anyway, I went through college, did my bachelor's degree, uh, finished that. And then before I actually finished my bachelor's degree, I actually joined the Army Reserves as a clarinet player.
Oh, right.
And
You mean during
yeah,
college? Yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
Went to basic training like right before my senior year of college.
Uh-huh.
Um, Went to the Army School of Music in Virginia, which is a really cool place, and it was a lot of fun actually. Practiced a whole
Mm.
bunch of clarinet there.
What is
Also
that?
played.
Is
Go ahead.
not sorry to interrupt, but is that like a training program school? Like, what is it? Is it a degree granting institution, or is it like?
No, it's actually just like purely training for incoming army musicians. Like for somebody to come in like out of basic training as a
Right.
musician for the army, they all go there and they basically teach you a bunch of like army band stuff that you're gonna need for when you go out into the field. Like
Okay.
when you join
Yeah.
like the regular active duty army band or even like National Guard or Reserve, like the army does a ton of marching and like a ton of ceremonies. And so
Right.
like everybody like across the whole army like does ceremonies like pretty much the exact same way. There's
Hmm.
like 87, well, there's a little less now, like army bands like across the United States. Like the army is actually like the largest employer of musicians for the military. There's a band in every single state to start off with.
So you're okay. So you did that your senior year of
Yep.
college. Yeah.
Yeah, then I came back, finished my bachelor's degree, graduated. Then I started my master's degree, and
Hmm.
that was actually at a school, Southwestern Oklahoma State University in Weatherford, Oklahoma.
Hmm.
Then after that, I went to UCO, University of Central Oklahoma, and that's in Edmond, Oklahoma, and started my
Right.
master's degree in jazz guitar because I was
Yeah,
always playing guitar.
I've heard they have a good jazz program.
Man,
I
they have a killer
Yeah.
jazz program. It's really awesome.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wish I had stayed, but if I had stayed and finished my master's degree, which I didn't, I like did
Hmm.
one, I think I did one semester and I kind of wasn't playing as much as I wanted to play. Like I thought moving to the city, I'd be gigging and stuff like that
Yeah.
and like making money. And like really all that I ended up doing was I learned a bunch of cool stuff on guitar, but then I got a bunch of debt from starting my master's
Ah,
degree. And
yes.
then so I was like, crap, I need to
Uh-huh.
do something. So I went active duty in the army. And
Okay.
then as a clarinet player, because they didn't have guitar slots. Um, so
Oh, I didn't
then I
know
got,
that. You were playing clarinet in the army. Okay.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, that was
Wow.
in 2019. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
2015.
Yeah.
And then from 2015 to 2019, I was active duty Army stationed at Fort Hood, Texas, which is Killeen,
Hmm.
playing
Right.
clarinet, doing the whole thing. Deployed to Afghanistan one time for like 3 to 4 months, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Came back. Then in 2019, I was wrapping up my Army career, and then they had an opening for the Air Force Band in San Antonio, like a guitar player spot. So I auditioned for that, ended up getting it. Had to finish my Army contract, which thankfully the band in San Antonio, they waited for me for almost a year.
Hmm.
I had about a year left on my Army contract, finished that out. Then I switched over to the Air Force in 2019, was in San Antonio, uh, deployed while I was there, went to
Hmm.
several places overseas, mainly
Hmm.
Qatar was the big one. Then in 2021, they had the audition for the Air Force Academy band in Colorado Springs. Got that, and then moved up here, and then I've been here since then.
It going back to your childhood days. So you got into the guitar, and what style of music were you into? You know, what style of music did you get into when you started playing guitar?
No, just the usual stuff that probably most kids start out with. I was pretty influenced by what my dad listened to, which
Yeah.
is, like a lot of Led Zeppelin and like The Who and like a little bit of Neil Young
Yeah.
and like
But you got in the classical guitar. How'd you get in the classical guitar?
I think I was trying to go to a string camp for violin actually this one
Yeah.
summer, and they didn't have enough people to do it. So the camp that I went to instead was I think it was a classical guitar camp. And that was
Yeah.
actually the first time that I'd heard somebody play a nylon string guitar. And I was
Yeah.
like, holy crap, that is like a awesome sound. And I played one and I was like, man, these strings feel like butter. Totally different feeling. Then I got into classical guitar, and then I heard like a flamenco guitar player one time and I was like, holy cow. And I like tried to do flamenco for a while, but that's like, unless if you have like a crazy good ear and just can pick that all out, or have
Yeah.
like an awesome teacher that'll teach you flamenco, that's kind of a hard one to do.
It sounds like you're very driven to be excellent at your instrument because I mean, obviously you're in the U.S. Air Force Academy band, which is a top band in the and hard to get into. So where did that drive come from to, just be like a master at your instrument?
I would say for guitar, it's always just been fun. Like when I played clarinet, I
Hmm.
love playing clarinet, but it was like it almost felt like a chore at sometimes to play clarinet.
Yeah.
Whereas guitar was just this thing that I just really, really liked to do. My drive for the instrument to begin with wasn't to be like the best or anything. It was just to have fun
Uh-huh.
and like play play well. Just I wanted to be able to play stuff that other people were playing. In particular for the military portion, and having to audition and stuff. Yeah, that drive is different because that's like that's like,
Hmm.
man, I really want this kind of a job. I want
Right. Yeah.
I want to be able to support my family with
Right.
being a military musician. And so
Right.
that is a different thing where you do have to be, I won't even say better than anybody else, because on an audition day is, yeah, there's like a minimum you've got to meet. Everybody else that auditioned that day, I could guarantee you, like, those cats were probably just as good as me, but I just had a little bit of a better
Yeah.
audition day.
Let me go back then to the clarinet thing because you auditioned for the reserve. That's your
Yeah.
first military
Uh-huh.
audition. So what was it like to prepare to do an audition for the reserve army clarinet spot?
I mean, it's pretty much the same as, I mean, I never auditioned for clarinet for, well, actually, I have auditioned on clarinet for a premier band. I've sent in tapes. It's actually really just the same.
Well, so people
It's
know
like,
like a premier band is the top band
yeah.
in military branch, right? Yeah,
Yeah. And then like the band that I was in was a reserve band, like a regional
right.
reserve band. I can remember like Stars and Stripes was definitely on there, and then like Sleigh Ride was on there. Those are pretty like standard pieces
Okay.
to play.
So yeah, yeah. Well, it sounds like you have a but you have a positive attitude.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
totally, man.
that's great. That's great. I mean, if you're definitely doing auditions, being positive, the mental mindset is it's so beneficial. Like,
Yeah, and that's one thing auditions for me is like so many people get super, super nervous and like, oh, I don't want to screw up. Well, in
Yeah.
all reality, it's just like a performance. Everybody that's there in the audience or the panel of, the panel that's listening to you do your audition, they just want to hear you do well. I mean, they're
Yeah.
basically getting a concert,
Well, usually they want you to do well. I've heard stories of people, well,
Yeah.
it's kind of like, oh, are you good enough? Prove yourself kind of thing.
Yeah, that's different. I didn't get
Yeah.
that feel from this. And in particular, this audition for the Air Force Academy was blind. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, I just go into like auditions and even performances. It did take me a long time to get like that. Like I used to get really nervous, and I
Yeah.
used to get really nervous singing, and I'd have like this like nervous like like a goat like vibrato because I was so scared.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then I just learned to relax. And
How did you learn to relax?
one time I missed a bunch of clarinet studio classes in
Yeah.
college, so I was made to do like a book report, basically.
Yeah.
And the book that I had to do this report over was The Inner Game of Music. Well, basically, like the big takeaway, basically, there's like a self one and self two, like parts of your mind. I don't remember which one is which, but basically, one of them is like, say I'm playing clarinet and I have this like, and I'm doing an audition, and I know that there's this part that I'm coming up to that has this like crazy hard articulation and it's fast and like I've done it. I've done it in practice, but now that I'm doing it live, my mind says, "Oh, here comes that part. Here comes that part. Don't screw it up. You're going to screw it up. You're going to screw it up."
Yeah.
That's that bad part. And then there's the good part. I don't know if if the other part even really thinks at all while you're performing. You basically just have to learn how to shut off that bad part
Okay.
that says,
Yeah.
"Here's that part that's coming up." And then the other part is just like being in the music. Like that's that other self that just has like full confidence, no doubt at all. Just like there's no inhibition, there's nothing holding you back with this other mindset.
So you're so the
Yeah.
yeah, so the book's like it's recognizing that there's two competing thoughts going on and that you have to understand that that's happening and then
Yeah,
embrace
yeah.
one over the other.
And then when I said, like when you audition and where you play live or whatever, like people just want to hear
Mhm.
you do well. Like that's I don't know if that was in the book or not, but it kind of like that kind of jumped into my mind after reading it. Yeah, like people aren't there out to judge you, and like tell you how
No.
bad you do. No,
Well,
they
no,
want
and
they
they
want
don't want nobody wants to hear bad music or bad
yeah,
anything because it's
yeah.
cringy, It's like, yeah, like
And don't get me-
it's
there's a baseline you have like you've got to be good to be out gigging or be in like one of these military bands or to be in any ensemble. Like you want to be good. I'm not saying like be bad and then be confident about being bad.
right,
Like
right.
yeah,
You have to be
but
prepared for what you're going to be
yeah,
doing. Yeah.
yeah. But a lot of times people are super prepared, but then they get up to that audition or that performance or whatever, and the nerves just take over.
So you came up to the Springs, which is where we both live now, and you come in, it's a blind audition. Like, what do they have you play?
I played a country. I played all of this stuff with like a combo group. So I was a guitar player. There was a bass player,
Yeah,
a key player, a drummer, and then there's also a vocalist. But we played like a country piece. We played like a Brad Paisley song, um, "Camouflage," which is a lot of fun.
yeah,
So that's like my country piece where I have to demonstrate that I can reproduce a country sound on the guitar and then have
right.
because country guitar vocabulary is very different from anything else. In fact, it's probably like one of the hardest things in my opinion.
Like, what is the main difference between rock, whatever rock is, and country guitar?
Well, I mean, one is the sound. Country, depending on the genre of country music, it's pretty like clean. Maybe like like a little bit of overdrive or like a little bit of hair on the tone.
Okay,
Not like full saturated lead guitar like sound.
right,
It's mainly clean and the technique, they call it, chicken picking. Everybody talks about that. But which is like hybrid picking, using a pick or a thumb pick and then using your fingers to pluck the strings and get a real spanky kind of sound. Man,
okay.
good country guitar players, say Brent Mason or Johnny Hilland, however you say his last name, even like Vince Gill, they've all got nails.
Oh,
And I
okay.
think
Yeah.
Johnny Highland and I know Brent Mason, they use acrylic nails.
Oh, wow.
Like, because having that a little bit of nail and flesh at the same time to like, you're literally like yanking a string like that
Yeah.
at that same time as like producing that pop sound. Like, not pop
Right.
music, but that, like pop of you yanking a string like that. And you need a little bit of nail. And if you use your real nails, unless if you have really strong nails and you take good care of them and like file them and buffer them all the time to make sure that they're always smooth,
Hmm.
like they're gonna tear when you start really chicken picking. So those guys use acrylic
Okay.
nails that are, glued on and
I didn't
or
know
however
that.
they
Wow.
do it. Yeah. I've used fake nails before. Like, I used a set of fake nails when I came and auditioned up here because
Wow.
I was playing that
Did
chicken
you
picking
paint
people.
them
And
too?
well, sometimes I was just in a hurry and I would just grab French tip nails, like
Yeah.
from Walgreens.
Uh-huh.
And so I'd have, French tip nails on my fingers that I had filed down.
Right.
Yeah, but I would never paint them myself. So if
That
they
was
came
not a
painted,
part of basic training, was it? Yeah.
no,
How
I
to
don't think.
apply French tip nails. What about, I watch a country band and they have, well, it seems like the lead vocalist will used to be doing like a rhythm guitar thing. So usually
Yeah, it's
sometimes.
pretty standard. That's part of the
Okay.
look too of any good country band, in my opinion, is having your
Yeah.
front man, even if he doesn't even play guitar, just hold the guitar.
Like Elvis
Because
did. Yeah.
yeah, because then you get into a whole different ballpark or a whole different like aspect of like what it means to have a show or a concert. Like, there's
Yes.
the look. The majority of audience people, like, you might actually listen. I might actually listen, but the majority of people that go to a concert, they don't actually. If you hear somebody say, "I'm going to a concert,"
Yeah.
check this out. They don't say, "I'm going to listen to George Strait." They say, "I'm going to see George Strait."
Okay. Yeah, I've never thought about
They don't
that
go.
difference. Yeah.
The majority of people don't go to concerts to actively listen.
Right.
Majority of people go to actively watch.
Experience it, dance, whatever.
Yeah,
Right. Of
you go to
course.
watch or the Eagles or whoever. Yeah, I mean the Eagle. Both those bands are great. You have great musicians, but like any rock show, it's a show. It There's a lot of visual stuff,
Right.
and so like having a guitar player or having a singer out front with a guitar is part of what I'm coming to see. Like, I might not ever hear him play. It's about
Right.
that. That's a totally different aspect of music that I actually really like as well.
So the audition, they need you to play country because you're going to be able to do that. What else? What other styles did you have to do?
We played rock. We played
Yeah.
rock and roll by Led Zeppelin. Just standard down the pipe rock and roll tune.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Uh, like, I would put as classic rock. Then we
Did
also
you get to
played like,
choose those tunes or did they tell you this is a
no,
list?
they're pre-chosen, and I got those
Okay.
like maybe like 3 weeks out from the audition,
Okay.
somewhere
Yeah.
around there. And then so I had the country piece, which is the Brad Paisley, and then the Led Zeppelin tune. They also did like a current pop tune, which the point of that
Hmm.
one is to be able to produce the sound of that one because it's not hard to play, um, but it has like an effect that's like most commonly used by like the Edge by from U2, like the
Right.
dotted eighth delay, like digga 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 digga, like where you're only doing eighth notes but you're producing 16th notes with the delay pedal. And so
Oh,
you've got
yeah.
to know that
Yeah.
song utilizes that. And then they asked us, there's a big keyboard solo in that song, and they said, do play the keyboard solo or improvise one, whichever. I just played the keyboard solo.
So
But
you had to
like create,
transcribe the keyboard solo and
yeah, but
yeah.
create a sound for it. And
Okay.
so I pretty much just created a synth sound on my pedal board.
The more I get to know about guitars, so much of it is making this sound. And that's something, so many other musicians, singers, horn players, whatever. We just don't we don't understand because to us, the challenge is making a good sound physically on the instrument. Um, of course, now a lot of the horn players are using effects, but that's a new thing. They really in the Air Force were thinking we got to pull off these gigs, so you got to be able to make these sounds.
It is a difficult thing to do, especially if you're not used to doing that, which that's probably one of my weaker areas. I can do it, but I'm not like a tone chaser guy, like a lot of other guitar players are, like getting the
Yeah.
perfect tone. I'm more like, like how I play clarinet, like I'm concerned with getting the notes to come out and being able to do certain licks and stuff like that. I always try to have a good tone, but some people are like dialing it into like, the nth degree, like getting it absolutely perfect. I'm like, well, does it sound good enough? Like I'm
You
good,
mean with their
you
equipment
know.
or with their actual technique?
I'm probably with equipment, like
Yeah.
EQing stuff perfectly, and then having like the exact amount of compression, and then like the perfect, reverb, and like taking down the like EQing the reverb a certain way and
Right.
getting it, I mean, and
And
that
then,
stuff makes a big difference.
yeah,
But
then
I'm
the
I'm
house,
not super into that.
yeah, it does, but then the house sound guy screws it all up anyways. So,
Yeah, you can definitely have that, or then they throw
yeah.
another EQ on top of the EQ that
Yeah,
you've already got,
exactly. Yeah.
or
They're at
or
the
they don't
board.
even know they have an EQ on, like they don't even know that they're doing some of the stuff. Yeah,
Mhm.
but we don't have that in the Air Force. They don't do that. They
No.
know what they're doing.
Do you have any tips? Like if somebody's auditioning for a military band, like just any kind of military band, any tips for those people?
I would say now, like regional bands for all of the branches are probably the Air Force is the hardest one to get into, in my opinion, because there's so few of them, and it's the
Hmm.
one branch that everybody wants to be in.
Right. It's
Like,
kind of it's like
you
your
know,
top symphony that there's the spots don't
yeah,
come up that much. And
correct,
yeah,
correct. Yeah, there's only I don't know the number off the top of my head, but like set like nine maybe active duty bands or
right.
something like that. Whereas the Army has twice as many active duty bands.
Right.
Um,
So
there's still players that are just as good in the Army band. Don't get me wrong. Um, but
right.
a little bit easier to get into only because slots are more available.
We were talking about venue and how like you got to realize why people go to shows. Like I'm going to see them
Yeah,
versus going to hear them, and
yeah.
and then understanding like the context of like what are your audition because you weren't auditioning for just playing. You were auditioning like just being a great guitar player. You're auditioning to be a part of the military band to do the gigs they were doing. Do you think that your background in like all these different styles and being able to just pick up these different styles helped a lot?
It
Yeah.
definitely helped in my preparation for it because I didn't have to spend nearly as much time on anything.
From what I've heard from the Air Force musicians is you're not there to be a virtuoso, you're there to do the gig, which is to play what they need to be to support their mission somewhere.
Versatility is the key for any of these auditions.
Right.
I mean, like there might be like a lead trumpet spot open or whatever, and you got to be able to play that. But like if you can only do lead trumpet and you can't sit down and play a classical piece in a brass quintet, that's kind of a problem. Like it
Right.
doesn't matter if you're this master jazz player, like you still got to be able to do concert band.
Just one last question is the you had this audition, which is obviously the bulk of whether or not they're going to accept you into the band. But was there any other consideration they had for accepting you, like an interview or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the audition
Yeah.
is blind, right? That's
Right.
supposed to be like they're there listening. They can't see me at all. It was videotaped. So afterwards, I'm sure they could go back and look at me
Yeah.
and see, like
See the
how I
nails
was
that you had.
performing,
Yeah.
or yeah, like the outrageous nails, or if I was like 600 pounds or something, and like, hey, I don't think this guy's like
It's
gonna
not
be able to
healthy enough.
lose.
Right.
Correct. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, the first part's blind, and then the second part, if they liked your music or you're playing, then you get an
Yeah.
audition. I mean, an interview. And so I
Okay.
had a interview just like what we're doing right now because it was a couple days after the live audition. I think either 2 or 3 days. Like I drove back home to San Antonio after that.
Hmm.
Um, I did an interview in my room just like this, and they asked me a bunch of questions. Had I answered them not
Weirdly.
very well or weirdly or wrong, whatever, I'm sure
Yeah.
that that would have been a factor and be like, I don't know if this guy like he sounded great, but like, his demeanor, his attitude, the way he carried himself in an interview was not what we're looking for because not only is it an interview, between us like one thing, but like I'm also gonna get interviewed once I'm in. Like
Hmm.
we talk to like news, like the media a fair amount and like have to talk in front of a bunch of people all the time too. So like that's also a skill in itself
Oh,
that
really?
yeah, that we need people to be able to do,
So you're
especially
going,
vocalists. They're,
when you tour, you go to
yeah,
different cities. You might have the local news people interviewing you, or
absolutely, yeah.
oh
Yeah, you
wow,
might do an interview and yeah, we did. We were just in Houston and we were on like whatever their local channel was for the news, and we performed on the news station like live broadcasted. We also, they interviewed us like, hey, what are you guys doing here? What are you doing this week? What's your names? Where you're from? Where are you
right?
from? Like all that kind of stuff, and like you've got to
Yeah,
be able to do that confidently, or at least fake it until you make it.
yeah. Well,
But yeah.
yeah. I mean, I meet so many musicians that are amazing at their instrument. They might be really nice people, but they're not engaging enough, or they're not social enough, really. Because like, especially playing gigs, any kind of thing where you're not just a person playing the violin or something, you have to engage people and talk to them, and that's such an important part of it.
The majority of people that are going to pay you for your gigs are not musicians, and they expect you to talk to them after the gig. And if you
Yeah.
want another gig, you got to talk to people.
Yeah.
Like you got in between sets, you don't go backstage and hide in the green room. Unless if I mean like if it's a local gig, like go talk to people. If you're like some huge band, yeah, you go back to your green room because they came to see you, like because you're Green Day. Like we came to see
Right.
Green
It's
Day.
too
Green Day
many.
doesn't have to talk to me. Taylor Swift doesn't have to talk to anybody. She just has to walk onto a stage and everybody goes crazy. But like
Right.
us, like I'm not famous. Like when I finish playing a set, like I don't run behind the stage and just hide there. Like I have to go back out into the audience and engage people and like,
Right.
word of mouth and like push my product so that
Right.
people will want me to come back and then get that human side of me. Yeah, they know I can play well or whatever, but like, is Bobby a nice guy? Like, can
Yes.
Bobby hold a conversation? Like, would I want Bobby to come back and be at future events? As the staff of whatever venue that I'm at, does the musician that we hired tonight make my clients that are eating and drinking feel welcomed?
Well, and that's a
Yeah.
skill that, yeah, you're not going to learn that in music school, obviously.
Nope.
And you're
Maybe not. Yeah.
well, and it's something that I think there's skills like that where people tend to think, well, I'm not good at that, so I just won't do it. But the
No, you
reality
gotta
is
learn.
you can learn, right?
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
learn to have a formula of like, this is how I do small talk. And maybe
Hmm.
that would make up for, or maybe you're amazing at the music and at the show part of it, but you just need a little bit of work on that side. It seems like what you're doing now is a really good fit for
Oh,
your
I
just
love it. Yeah.
appreciation of all different styles. It sounds awesome that you're
Yeah.
able to get paid to play these different styles and then play a bunch of gigs here in the spring. So we're glad to have you around.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks,
All
man.
right,
Yeah.
man.
And thanks for having
We
me on. Yeah.
Thanks, Bobby. Have a good one.